Hello and welcome back to Exothermic Plays Games. I'm Exothermic and today is Wednesday, August 14th, 2024, and while I've been doing a daily countdown of my 366 favorite video games of all time this year, this is technically not that. Today's game is Pokemon Sword and Shield, but this isn't the video talking about the game itself. You can find that linked in the description if you want to watch it. This is instead continuing the idea with mainline Pokemon games that I make a companion video ranking the new Pokemon from that game by themselves. If you watched my Sun and Moon version of this already, you may notice that the format here is a bit different. Rather than taking the time to show you the process of ranking everything and talking through it as I do it, I've already done all of that, and I'm just going to run down the list of, let's see here, 107 new Pokemon from my least favorite to my favorite. A few more things to clarify before I jump into it. First, I never got the DLC expansion for Sword and Shield. I'm still ranking those Pokemon on here, but a lot of those rankings come from just visual design and what little I know about them from the trading card game. Second, while I am including the Galarian regional variants, I am just ranking things from this game. Even though I'd argue Pokemon Legends Arceus is part of the broader 8th generation of Pokemon, I'm not ranking the Hisuian regional variants. I also haven't played that game at all, so know that outside of the concept of a wooden Voltorb and an extremely floofy Growlithe, nothing there is remotely appealing to me. And lastly, I'm largely going to be ignoring the Gigantamax designs for these rankings. I'll mention if they're particularly noteworthy, and I'm also not going to rank the Gigantamax forms of previous generations Pokemon at all. Yes, Gigantamax Snorlax is incredible and has a tree growing from it, but it's not getting ranked. A lot of them are pretty close to the regular versions of the Pokemon, and it feels weird to basically just rank that Pokemon in a different generation's video, but this is also a gimmick that doesn't exist in any form outside this game, and only sometimes exists even in this one. So ultimately, where those get placed doesn't really matter to me. It's my video, I can do what I want. On to the rankings. In last place, the absolute worst edition of the franchise from Sword and Shield is Arctovish. For the most part, I don't like the fossil Pokemon in this generation. I don't like that thematically you're just combining different parts of other dead Pokemon to basically create something new. I don't like that there's a ton of overlap in the new fossils. I also think that Arctovish just looks dumb, and in some, but not all art, a little phallic. And I just really don't like this Pokemon. Significantly better than Arctovish, but still not very good, is Galarian Darumaka. This little guy is just kind of round and featureless and extremely boring. I don't actively dislike it, I suppose, but it just does really nothing for me. Number 105 is Blipbug. You're going to notice a theme across all of the Pokemon rankings throughout the rest of the year, and also the Sun and Moon one if you've already watched that. I don't like bugs. Most of Blipbug's design is fine as a bug, but its giant eyes are a bit unnerving to me, and it's a bug. Number 104 is Urshifu. This is from the DLC that I haven't played, and it's my understanding that people tend to like Urshifu. I think there's something about having different combat stances, which is probably story related, but again, I haven't played it. The design for Urshifu is fine, I guess, though I tend to not love when Pokemon have a little too many humanizing characteristics, and this is right on the edge there. The real reason it's down at the bottom, though, is that between the TCG and my foray into online battles in Scarlet and Violet after they opened up Pokemon Home, I'm just really sick of seeing its stupid face. If I never played against another Urshifu again, I would be okay with that. Number 103 is Gossifleur. It's a flower, but of the Pokemon that are flowers, I think it's the most boring. I don't actually dislike it, but when put next to other similar Pokemon, it just feels very uninspired to me. Number 102 is Silicobra. It's a snake, and not a very interesting one. It also looks like it could use a nap. Number 101 is Dreadnought. Similarly to how Gossifleur is just a flower and Silicroba is just a snake, Dreadnought is just a turtle. It's kind of neat that it has like hinge looking thing going on with its jaw, but it is still just a turtle. Number 100 is Regidrago. The Regi Pokemon are pretty neat, and I appreciate their willingness to keep expanding the line. I suspect I'd probably like this Pokemon a lot more if I had played the expansion for Sword and Shield, but the visual design feels like they were trying to make a Dragon-type Regi, and were like, well, let's just put a distorted Charizard head on it for an arm as a placeholder. We'll come up with something better and come back to it. And then they just forgot to come up with something better. I like its colors though. Number 99 is Zarude. This is from the DLC, and that's about all I can tell you about it. I pretty much could not care less about a Pokemon, but I also am just very neutral. This is like the pure neutral ranking. Number 98 is Galarian Zapdos. I still don't know how I feel overall about having regional variants of legendary Pokemon, but as you'll see, that doesn't stop some pretty favorite opinions later in the list. I like the idea that they made the electric bird care about speed, but I dislike that they took a legendary bird and made it flightless. Number 97 is Frostmoth. I don't like bugs, and adding snow doesn't fix that. Moths make me uncomfortable, and this is an absolutely outrageously large moth. The only thing saving this from an even worse ranking is that the TCG card that lets you attach a bunch of water energy is a lot of fun. Number 96 is Dottler. Don't like bugs. This one's a little cute and definitely less buggy than Blipbug. Plus it walks funny, and I like that its dots light up. Number 95 is Eldegoss. It's cotton. This isn't the first cotton-oriented Pokemon, but Cottonee and Whimsicott at least look like creatures that happen to have cotton on their bodies. This is straight up cotton, and that makes me uncomfortable with the idea of clothing in this world. Number 94 is Galarian Darmanitan. The regular design is fine. It's a little snow monster dude. I feel like kinda take it or leave it, but the entering Zen mode when its health drops below half turns it into a fire ice type snowman? That's actually kinda cool. Number 93 is Centiskorch. Still don't like bugs. The amount that I don't like them is even directly correlated to the amount of legs they have. Centiskorch has an awful lot of legs, which means I really don't like its bug aspects, but I kinda like its face, and the Gigantamax version's color palette is pretty solid. Number 92 is Galarian Stunfisk. Why this needed to be a regional variant, I have no idea, but it's basically a bear trap as a Pokemon, and that's a pretty interesting idea, but it's also kind of boring looking. Number 91 is Sizzlipede. It retains a lot of the small upsides to Centiskorch while not having anywhere near as many legs. Plus, those legs look less like legs and more like just little nubs, which is at least kinda cute. Number 90 is Galarian Linoone. The Galar region is based roughly on the United Kingdom, and Galarian Linoone is almost like Ziggy Stardust if David Bowie was actually a European badger. Number 89 is Arctozolt. I still don't like the fossil Pokemon this generation, but there is something comical about Arctozolt's tiny little head attached to its enormous body. Number 88 is Galarian Mr. Mime. I mentioned I don't like overly humanized Pokemon, and as a spoiler for when we do eventually get to it, Mr. Mime is one of my least favorite Pokemon in Generation 1 for this exact reason. Galarian Mr. Mime, however, does gain some bonus points for not having fingers and seemingly wearing more clothes. Number 87 is Regieleki. Similarly to Regidrago, I have no attachment to this Pokemon as I haven't played the expansion content, but it's a pretty interesting design for an embodiment of electricity. It looks neat, especially the almost like light bulb looking parts of it, but I just don't really feel anything when I look at it, if that makes sense. No real attachment. Number 86 is Impidimp. One of my favorite zones in the game is the forest you find these guys in, Glimwood Tangle. It's such a pretty zone, and seeing them running around and being chaotic little dark fairy mischievous dudes is such a great touch. You're gonna hear this a couple more times, but Dark Fairy is a super cool typing, and the shinies for these look amazing. Number 85 is Galarian Yamask, and I don't have a lot to say about it. It's little, it's cute. The rune concept is pretty fun. They float around and just get to be little and cute, and that's like it. Number 84 is Kubfu. This is another expansion Pokemon I know almost nothing about, other than it evolves into Urshifu. It's less humanoid than Urshifu is, so it has that going for it, and it's definitely a lot cuter. Just a really concentrated looking karate kid trying to do his best to make Mr. Miyagi happy. I choose to believe that's the plot to this Pokemon, and please do not tell me otherwise. Number 83 is Pincurchin, and it's a sea urchin, and ultimately not that interesting, but its name is a pun on pincushion, so that's kinda great. Number 82 is Arrokuda. I'm generally not super big on fish Pokemon that are just fish, but Barracuda is a cool fish, because, like, Barracuda are cool, and I like his little snaggletooth. Plus, you get some hinting at the evolved form's design with its markings, which I like it. Number 81 is Skwovet. It's a squirrel, just a fat, happy little squirrel. It's definitely cute, that's all there is to say. Number 80 is Calyrex. This is, as far as I can tell, an important expansion Pokemon, and one that I don't fully understand, and that might be in part because of how it works in the TCG. There are other Pokemon on this list, Spectrier and Glasstrier, that are different types of horses, and this guy rides them? When they combine, they might become new Pokemon? They might just be... they're separate? I'm not sure. I don't like the design of Calyrex itself, and as you'll see, I like, but don't super love, the designs of the Pokemon it rides. But putting them together is pretty cool looking, and Shadow Rider Calyrex is one of my favorite cards in a long time in the TCG. Number 79 is Corvisquire, the middle evolution of Rookidee, Corvisquire, and Corviknight, and it's pretty much just a bird. But I love their naming scheme, and Corvids are cool birds. But still, obligatory bird Pokemon is obligatory. Number 78 is Galarian Slowpoke. The idea they took the dumb Pokemon and implied these ones are a different kind of dumb because they're like drugged out, poisoned out of their minds is kind of hilarious to me. Plus, it's always funny to me when we get confirmation of people eating Pokemon, like the Pokedex entry that explains their tails are way spicier than normal Slowpokes because of their special diet in Galar. Number 97 is Toxel. This is a very cute little guy, and it needs a nap. In an age where they don't make baby Pokemon anymore, this is definitely a baby Pokemon. Number 76 is Spectrier. It's a shadow horse, which is in itself a cool descriptor. Similarly to how I feel about Calyrex, I think the design is alright, but not great, and gets much better when you combine the two. Number 75 is Grapploct. If we're taking the idea of water fighting Pokemon, Grapploct is way cooler than Crabrawler and Crabominable in Sun and Moon. A brawling octopus that's gonna grapple you with more arms than you have and throw you around like a ragdoll is a pretty cool design. Number 74 is Dracovish. Again, I dislike the concept behind this generation's fossil Pokemon. The idea that we are incorrectly assembling these fossils and getting living, functioning Pokemon out of them in the end is something I inherently don't like. And Dracovish looks dumb and kind of annoying. That all being said, the anime's depiction of Ash's Dracovish is hilarious, and after you get used to some of its more annoying quirks, pretty endearing. Dracovish as a species is definitely not better than Grapploct, for example, but Ash's Dracovish is. Number 73 is Dubwool, the evolved form of Wooloo, which, you're gonna hear me talk about Wooloo. This is very much just a ram with a big, giant, fleecy body. I don't love Dubwool's design, it's a bit too close to just an actual, real-life animal, but shiny Dubwool has a pretty great color palette, and I love Wooloo. Number 72 is Glasstrier. Everything I said about Calyrex and Spectrier is still true, but I like the visual appearance of Glasstrier on its own a little bit more. The giant ice spike on its head makes it more of a unicorn than a horse, so that's neat. Number 71 is Choodle. While Dreadnought is basically just a turtle, so is Choodle. The thing that puts Choodle much higher on the ranking than Dreadnought is its comically large head and enormous overbite. It's cartoonish, and adorable, and I love it, and this is what Pokemon needs to be doing. Number 70 is Nickit. Foxes are cute animals, and I definitely wouldn't mind having one in real life. On top of that, Nickit is a cute little kleptomaniac with rings on its eyes that make it look like it's wearing a mask. This is the most adorable little criminal, and it stole my heart. Number 69 is Sandaconda. We're moving away from the just a snake appearance of Silicroba to something a little more fantasy and monster, but really the entire reason that it's not at the bottom with Silicobra is that I can make Sir Mix-a-Lot jokes. Number 68 is Brookity. Similarly to Corvisquire, this is pretty much just a bird, and I like the naming scheme for this evolution line, but this time it's much more round, and more round is often more good. Just a cute little birdie. Number 67 is Morgrem. Impidimp has grown up a bit, and this is the angsty emo teen Pokemon. If you've ever wanted a team of just like little gremlins that terrorize everyone else, Morgrem is a great choice for that, and the shiny appearance, again, is great. Number 66 is Roly-Coly. It doesn't always work out, but I tend to lean more towards the inanimate objects as Pokemon is kinda cool camp, and the idea that this is literally just a sentient lump of coal is pretty funny. And it's cute, plus like Roly-Coly is a great name. Number 65 is Barraskewda. Again, pretty much just like a fish, as I mentioned for Arrokuda. Barracuda are cool fish, but the thing that really gives Barraskewda some legs to swim on is the really cool fishbone design all down its size. I think that's just metal and awesome. Number 64 is Thievul. Our little kleptomaniac has grown up to be a full-on burglar. All of the qualities I liked on Nickit are exaggerated in Thievul's design, and I like some exaggerated Pokemon designs. Personally, I choose to believe that any of my Thievul are more like Robin Hood than Daniel Ocean, but also, just to be safe, probably don't leave your shoes unattended. Number 63 is Dreepy. Okay, so it's like a sleepy little ghost dragon dude with what looks like little praying mantis arms, and it's just a wispy little guy. And I got one almost immediately in my first playthrough of Sword and Wonder Trade, and immediately fell in love with the idea of a ghost dragon. Number 62 is Raboot. This is the first part of any starters on the list, and while that makes it my least favorite design amongst them, that doesn't mean I dislike it. I'm not entirely sure why, but when I look at Raboot, what I see is Chunin Exam Sasuke from Naruto, but if instead of being an angsty ninja, he's an angsty soccer-playing rabbit. Number 61 is Galarian Articuno. I still don't feel great about regional variants for legendary Pokemon because it seems lazy. On top of that, shiny Galarian Articuno is basically just Articuno. This one's definitely the least different amongst the birds, and that holds it back. The only reason it ranks this highly is because I like the card of the TCG. Number 60 is Drizzle. Another starter evolution, and again, kinda angsty looking. It's weird that they made them all angsty. Well, not all, but Drizzle is a mood, and I kinda like sleepy, annoyed Pokemon, but there's not a whole lot else going on here. Number 59 is Runerigus. This is the evolution of Galarian Yamask, and I think a way cooler evolution than Cofagrigus. I like all of the runes, and the idea of the Cofagrigus always bothered me because I thought the Pokemon should be the ghost inside the sarcophagus, not the sarcophagus itself. Number 58 is Dracozolt. Finally, I am done with the fossil Pokemon. I still don't like the idea behind them, but this is by far the funniest looking one, and basically takes everything goofy and fun about like a Tyrannosaurus Rex with like its little arms that are way too tiny for its enormous body, and just turns it up to 11. Number 57 is Zamazenta. This is one of the two cover Pokemon for these games, being the cover Pokemon for Shield. As you see, I very much prefer Sword's cover Pokemon, but there's still things to like about Zamazenta. It's a good boy chivalry doggo with a cool plot component, and it just lets out the best Awoo it can. Really, the Pokemon is pretty great, I just think the shield itself looks dumb, which drags it down in the rankings a lot. Number 56 is Colossal. Roly-Coly is a single piece of coal. Colossal is a lot of coal. Sentient coal is still funny. I do really like the Gigantamax form for Colossal too, and it's got a permanent home in my Pokemon Sword game to include in my egg hatching party. Number 55 is Galarian Slowbro. Most of what I said about Galarian Slowpoke applies here, but Slowbro gets bonus points for the Shellder biting it looking far more formidable as a blunt weapon. Number 54 is Clobbopus. Speaking of blunt weapons, being baby isn't going to prevent it from throwing down, and I feel like it would be fun to actually spar with this little guy, given its little boxing gloves. It's really cute, and I just want it to be happy. Number 53 is Flapple. I love most of the food-oriented Pokemon, and the Pokemon this evolves from, Applin, ranks pretty highly in this video. The idea that an apple evolves into a dragon apple is pretty funny, and overall I still like the Pokemon, but it's a little too much dragon and not enough apple for my liking. The design is very reminiscent of Mutalisks in StarCraft 2, so that does help. Number 52 is Galarian Zigzagoon. I love the color palette of this regional variant, and the stripes work great with its more pointy design in its first form of the evolution line. The shiny color palette is also incredible and one of the best shinies in this whole game. Number 51 is Greedent. While Squelva is basically just a squirrel, Greedent has a lot more going on. It's a fat squirrel, a big chonker, an absolute unit. And I like that its bushy tail got just outrageously enormous, and it has a beard now that food gets stuck in, and the way you find them in the wild is by shaking berry trees where it falls and lands on your head, because it's been stuck up in that tree eating all the berries, and it's fat. Yeah. We're in the top 50. As my 50th favorite new Pokemon in Sword and Shield, it's Inteleon. Of the final evolutions for the starters in this game, it's my least favorite, but it's still a pretty interesting design. While Sobble and Drizzle are just like sad little guys, Inteleon somehow becomes a Sniper Super Spy? While Sniper Super Spy is a pretty cool design, I just don't follow how we go from Drizzle to Inteleon. It doesn't make sense to me at all, and that holds Inteleon back a bit. Number 49 is Hatterene. This is part of an evolution line of fairy Pokemon that's whole thing is hats. It's just a cute little pink Pokemon wearing a giant hat. Its hat is so big that its feet don't touch the ground, and it instead stands with the hat. That's some outrageous design, and it's great. Number 48 is Duraludon. I've talked a bit that I kind of like the inanimate object designs because I think they're just goofy and fun, and oh wow! I know I said I generally wasn't factoring in the Gigantamax forms into these rankings, but an exception is made here. Regular Duraludon is basically just a really tall steel Pokemon, it's fine, but Gigantamax Duraludon turns into a literal building. It's a skyscraper. It's enormous. It's awesome. Number 47 is Ice-Q. This is a very dumb Pokemon. It's a penguin. Its head is made of ice. Half the time, that ice is a literal ice cube. That's it. That's the Pokemon. Number 46 is Morpeko, but I just realized that Hatterene somehow didn't get on my list, so mentally just bump everyone else up one, and I guess Hatterene is gonna be the new 47, and then we'll do Morpeko, and everyone else is up one. Hatterene is the final evolution of the Hatena line. It sticks with the idea of big hat, except this time it's hard to tell when you first look at it, but once you see it, it's hard to unsee it. The Pokemon is still very tiny, very little Pokemon, but the hat now encapsulates an entire body. It is all hat. Like, the hat is hat, and then hair, and then trench coat and legs. All hat. That's fun. Right, 46 is Morpeko. Here we've got this generation's obligatory Pikachu-like electric critter. I ranked Mimikyu as my favorite Pokemon in Sun and Moon, and the design here is pretty straightforward but has an interesting gimmick, though nowhere near as interesting as Mimikyu's disguise. Each turn, Morpeko switches between being an electric or dark type Pokemon. This is themed on hunger, with the electric being called full belly mode and the dark type being called hangry mode. I really like the idea of hangry mode, not only just for the name, but the fact that it automatically switches between the two each turn. I do think is fairly boring. I also think it's just a bit too similar in design to Pikachu. Yes, Mimikyu is extremely similar too, but that's kind of the point of the Pokemon. This is just Pikachu at home. Number 45 is Hatenna. This is the precursor to Hatterene and still definitely has the hat idea. It's still got to stand on its own 2 feet though, but that's okay because the hat is so big on it, it can't see, and I think it's just absolutely adorable. And in the animated shows, it's crazy how much emotion they're able to display on a Pokemon whose only facial feature is an extremely simple mouth. Number 44 is Toxtricity. Toxel has quite the glow up, and its evolved form is very cool. There's 2 different forms to it, and while they are cool to display different moods from the Pokemon's nature, something that's often an absolute afterthought to anyone not caring about competitive play, there's not a lot of difference besides the appearance. There's one unique attack to either of them, but neither of those unique attacks are all that interesting. Mostly, I just think Toxtricity looks cool, and with its electric guitar theming, it doesn't hurt though that its Gigantamax form is pretty neat. Number 43 is Indeedee. Gonna be honest, I don't know a lot about this Pokemon, and I could not care less about its visual design. It's based on a butler or servant or something, which is kinda cool, but also kinda weird. Literally the only thing that got this Pokemon this ranking is the card in the TCG Indeedee V. I play almost exclusively Psychic Pokemon in the TCG, and this card is great. I like to play it in Expanded with Skyfield, so I can load up my bench with them and heal 60 or 80 HP every single turn for free. Number 42 is Mr. Rime. Almost everything negative I said about Mr. Mime still applies, but this one is decidedly less human, and it's wearing a bowler hat. That alone is worth a lot. Plus the name is cool for an ice Pokemon. Number 41 is Galarian Slowking. I don't have a lot left to say about this evolution line that I haven't said about the other 2, except I love that the shelter on its head has basically just bitten over its entire face and just is the face now. That's hilarious. Number 40 is Boltund. It's a dog. Dogs are good. It's fast. It's electric. Good name. Good boys are good. That's it. Number 39 is Milcery. So this is a sentient droplet or whatever measurement of sweet cream, and it makes baked goods with its cream. Don't ask. I love food Pokemon, and this is a good one. I love the way it evolves into Alchemy, which I'll explain when I get to Alchemy. Number 38 is Eternatus. Ah yes, the big bad legendary that the main antagonist summons to solve his problems and inadvertently destroy the world. I do not care about this Pokemon thematically or mechanically. It's basically just evil for the sake of being evil, and it's not that interesting. But it looks so cool. Maximum cool points. Number 37 is Orbeetle. I don't like bugs, but Orbeetle has something very special going for it. For starters, it's a psychic bug, which is kinda neat. But more importantly, when it Gigantamaxes, it turns into a giant flying saucer. It's a UFO! This isn't even an alien, and it's automatically cooler than almost all of the actual alien Pokemon in Sun and Moon. I know I said I was largely ignoring Gigantamax for ranking, but this one is definitely an exception. Number 36 is Galarian Meowth. This is Meowth, the bipedal cat, except now it's Steel type and has a giant beard. Instant improvement. Number 35 is Dracloak, the evolved form of Dreepy. We're starting to gain some real shape here, and it's a fun design. You'll notice a Dreepy in the art there too. That's intentional and literally part of Dracloak's design. Why? Because Dreepy are tiny and weak, and something needs to protect them. They're buddies. Number 34 is Cinderace. There is something very cool about a soccer superstar fire rabbit. There isn't a lot more to go on here, but that idea is very cool. The Gigantamax form is also very cool, as it's standing over a giant fireball, but again, mostly ranking the regular forms here. Number 33 is Thwackey. This is the middle evolution of the grass starter, and here's everything you need to know. The little dude loves drumming, and he's got 2 sticks that he will use to drum on absolutely anything, including your face. Number 32 is Obstagoon. The final evolution for Galarian Zigzagoon is a glam rock icon and lead singer, apparently. This is definitely a visual design ranking through and through, especially for the shiny color palette. Number 31 is Snom. It's a little baby ice bug, and despite me hating bugs, it's just so cute, and it has kind of a butt for a face, and it's tiny and baby and ice, and I think I'd actually want to pet it. This is the only bug Pokemon in almost 30 years of this franchise existing that I want to pet. So cheers to Snom for pulling off the impossible. Number 30 is Scorbunny. Cinderace has put in all the work, gotten all the gear, the late nights, the practices, the travel league BS, the heartbreak, the recovery, and become a soccer champion. Scorbunny just loves to kick a ball, and its enthusiasm is contagious. We should all strive to be a little more like Scorbunny. Number 29 is Berserker. More Meowth, more beard, more good. Moving on. Number 28 is Galarian Corsola. Okay, so this one makes me kind of sad, but it's a great Pokemon. Normally, Corsola is just sentient, animal, coral, like coral reefs and stuff. But now, it's bleached white and is dead. It's a ghost type. Coral reefs globally occupy less than 1% of the ocean, but support 25% of all marine life in the world. About a third of all reefs are estimated to be severely damaged, and it's getting worse. Galarian Corsola is severely damaged, and we should help them. Number 27 is Galarian Farfetch'd. It's basically the same as regular Farfetch'd, but this time it has a much bigger leak and it's not afraid to use it, becoming a fighting type. I love the leak that's bigger than it is. Number 26 is Grimmsnarl. This is the final evolution of Impidimp, and talk about growing up, it got big. The whole evolution line was on my first champion team of Sword, and Grimmsnarl is a house. Being Fairy/Dark is a great type line, and it covers a lot of important matchups throughout the story. It's one of the best defensive support Pokemon ever made, and it can also pack a punch if you let it. Number 25 is Phalanx. Even though it's a singular Pokemon, it's made up of several little round warrior dudes that arrange in a defensive position, with the name referencing the military positioning of a phalanx. Just little Greek soldiers ready to go off to war. I love it. Number 24 is Galarian Ponyta. It's like if Ponyta was made of cotton candy and drugs. Number 23 is Cramorant. By itself, Cramorant isn't that interesting. It's a bird. But it does something very interesting. It can swallow another Pokemon, notably fish, and then spit it out at you. That's great. Number 22 is Galarian Rapidash. It's bigger Galarian Ponyta, but now it's a unicorn. Drugged out, cotton candy, unicorn. Number 21 is Cufant. I love elephants, especially baby elephants. Regarding real life animals, elephants are my favorite animal. Just look at this little guy. It's so cute. Number 20 is Zacian, the better of the two cover legendaries. Both of them are good boyos, but Zacian's equipment looks much cooler. Yes, it's just a sword, but it holds it with its mouth, and it's quite skilled with it. It's awesome. Number 19 is Applin. It's a sentient apple. It evolves into Flapple and a yet unranked Pokemon. It's really cute. I love food Pokemon. Hard for this to not rank highly. Number 18 is the water starter, Sobble. It's also really cute, and it's really sad. It cries a lot at the first indicator of any conflict. I just want Sobble to be happy. Number 17 is the last of our starters, Grookey. In my first playthrough of Sword, I picked Grookey as my starter, mostly because I liked the idea of a monkey just hitting people with a stick. I took to yelling out, "He's gonna Grook ya!" whenever my Grookey attacked stuff. Evolving into Thwacky was a good day. Number 16 is Cursola, the evolution of Galarian Cursola. Cursola. One has a U, one has an O. Now our dead coral reef is seeking vengeance, and as the decayed body erodes away into the water, the ghost really emerges. It curses people that get near it as a defense mechanism. Remember, we gotta do something about these reefs. They're important. They even make a lot of oxygen. Anyways. Number 15 is Corviknight. Rookidee and Corvisquire are kinda meh, but Corviknight? Awesome. Giant metal raven. I love ravens. Chivalrous, powerful, ominous, taxi service. What's not to like here? Number 14 is Caparaja. I mentioned the elephants are my favorite animal, and this is a full-grown elephant with the biggest trunk you ever did see. I really like the design, and regarding the United Kingdom influence of the region, it's clearly imported from India's time as part of the empire. Number 13 is Rillaboom, Grookey's final evolution. He's really upped his drumming game, and despite its appearance, Rillaboom is actually quite a gentle giant, and just wants to make some cool music. Plus, Gigantamaxing to get a full-on drum kit is kind of great. Number 12 is Stonejourner. Again with the UK influence, they literally turned Stonehenge into a Pokemon. That is so cool, and it still doesn't crack the top 10. I really like a lot of the new Pokemon this generation. Number 11 is Appletun. It's an apple pie as a Pokemon. And a dinosaur? Question mark? This is the dumbest design, perhaps, of the whole generation, but it's also spectacular. On to the top 10. Number 10 is Wooloo. This was one of the first Pokemon revealed after these games were announced, and I instantly fell in love with it, along with much of the internet. It's so perfectly round and floofy and great. It has stumpy little legs, so it has to roll to get places. It's a sheep with bangs. I remember fan art immediately coming out with Wooloo holding a gun in its mouth and the caption, "Mess with the flock, you get the Glock." And that has cemented Wooloo as an incredible Pokemon to me ever since. Number 9 is Carkol. Roly-Poly is cute, but not actually that interesting. Colossal is interesting, but not very cute. Carkol though? Carkol is amazing. It's a minecart, a sentient minecart filled with coal, and it just gets so happy. There's a clip in my main video for this game with me playing with my Carkol, and it's the exact moment I absolutely fell in love with this Pokemon. Number 8 is Sinistea. I love the idea of ghost Pokemon inhabiting random objects, and Sinistea is a great example of that. For starters, it's actually the tea in the teacup, which I think that's very funny. But it's also like goopy and just a very cool ghost Pokemon. Number 7 is Galarian Moltres. This is the only one of the Galarian legendary birds that I actually really vibe with, and it's mostly because they simultaneously didn't really mess with it too much, but it's also noticeably different than the original. Even more so than Eternatus, this one is gaining huge style points over anything else. Number 6 is Galarian Weezing. Speaking of style points, they turned Weezing into a big industrial revolution smokestacks, made them top hats, and gave it facial hair. There's a real chance that if a monocle was part of this design, this would be the number 1. It's remarkable. Number 5 is Polteageist. All of the things I said about Sinistea still apply, but being the whole teapot is kind of fun. And there's a really neat thing with Polteageist where most of them are in replica teapots, but a very small percentage are the real deal, and you can actually tell by inspecting your Polteageist and looking at the model for it. Like, you just look at the bottom of the teacup and there's a marking. What a totally... Sorry, the teapot, not teacup, that's Sinistea. Poltegeist teapot. What a totally unnecessary but very cool and appreciated detail. Number 4 is Sirfetch'd. It's a knight now. It has been weighed, it has been measured, and it has not been found wanting. It followed its feet, picked up a lance, and made a name for itself. Plus it's got an attack called Meteor Strike, and it hits like a bus. Number 3 is Alcremie. There was a brief moment in time where I loved Alcremie so much, I decided I was going to try to collect all 63 combinations of its appearance. The way you evolve Alcremie is that you have to take your Milcery, beat up a cafe owner, take his treat rewards, give it to your Milcery, and spin in a circle. This whips the Sweet Cream Pokemon into a Whipped Cream Pokemon. You're literally beating your Pokemon to evolve. That's wild. I mentioned all of its appearances. It will look different depending on which sweet it's holding, the time of the day for the evolution, and even how long you spun in a circle. Alcremie is amazing and the second greatest food Pokemon ever. Number 2 is Yamper. We are in UK-inspired Pokemon world, and this is a Pembroke Welsh Corgi with a heart on its butt. I do love Bolton, all of the dogs are good dogs, but it's an immediate downgrade when it loses the heart on its butt. And Yamper heard Wooloo everywhere. You can just sit and watch it in the game. It's great. Finally, my favorite Pokemon introduced in Generation 8 is Dragapult. It's a ghost dragon, which is like the coolest typing ever. It shoots its babies at you as torpedoes. It's such a great design with how the tail slowly turns invisible, and the mechanics match that with its signature attacks being shooting literal dreepies at enemies, but then also turning invisible, sneaking up on them for another attack later. I love Dragapult so much that for years, yes, years, plural, after this game came out, I considered it my all-time favorite Pokemon. It's spectacular. Pokemon's 8th generation has a lot of great Pokemon in it, and while there's definitely some misses, the average is, I think, better than many games in the franchise, and the top-down designs, like Stonjourner, are some of the absolute best ideas they've ever had. Anyways, I hope you liked this video, and I hope you liked that it was a bit more organized than my Sun and Moon new Pokemon ranking. There will be more of these, but as for when and for which games, that's a surprise for later. Thanks for watching if you made it this long, and I'll see you next time.